Greetings, dear listeners. Before I begin this powerful story, a tale of quiet sacrifice, deep betrayal, and the moment a woman finally chooses herself, I want to ask for your kindness and support. Please subscribe to the channel, tap the like button, and leave a comment telling me which city or country you're listening from today. It truly means the world to me to see how many of us are connected through these stories. And now, settle in, because this one is long, emotional, and unforgettable. The front door slammed so hard that the old crystal chandelier in the hallway trembled, sending tiny rainbows across the faded wallpaper. It was 5 hours ago, but the air still carried the heavy, intoxicating trail of Serafina's perfume, something expensive, French, with notes of jasmine and vanilla that she sprayed like she owned the oxygen itself. That scent never belonged in our modest Victorian townhouse. This home had always smelled of old wood, fresh linen, dried rosemary from the kitchen herbs, and the faint metallic tang of my sewing machine oil. Her perfume felt like an intruder, loud and demanding, just like her. I stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen, my hands resting on the cool enamel of the countertop. The silence that followed her departure was not peaceful. It was heavy, watchful, almost predatory. I used to love silence. After long days bent over custom gowns for wealthy clients, measuring, pinning, stitching delicate French seams until my eyes burned and my lower back ached, this quiet had been my reward. But today it pressed against my chest like a weight. My stomach gave a low, insistent growl, simple hunger, the kind that starts as a whisper in the afternoon and becomes a roar by evening. I was almost ashamed of it, as if feeling hungry at 72 was some kind of failure. I opened the pantry door. The hinges sighed, familiar and complaining. The shelves were clean, organized the way I had always kept them, and completely bare. Serafina had left in a storm of energy that morning. Suitcases open on the living room floor, clothes flying, silk dresses, designer bikinis, strappy heels, bottles of sun cream and after-sun lotion. She moved like a bright, exotic bird trapped temporarily in a cage it despised. I had watched from the doorway, my tea growing cold in my hands. At the last moment, already in her sunglasses and wide-brimmed hat, she turned to me with that practiced smile. "Mommy, I need your debit card, just in case. You know how these resorts are. Sometimes the ATMs are down or they add random fees." My heart sank. "Serafina, that card is linked to my Social Security deposit. It's everything I have for the month." She waved a manicured hand. "Oh, please, you have that big bag of oatmeal in the pantry. You can make porridge every day. Add a little cinnamon, it's practically gourmet. Honestly, Mom, a little fasting would do you good. All the influencers are doing intermittent fasting now. Doctors say it's rejuvenating at your age." I tried again, my voice small. 2 weeks is a long time to live on oatmeal alone. She rolled her eyes, snatched the card from my outstretched hand, and slipped it into her designer wallet. "Don't be dramatic. I deserve this vacation. I work 60-hour weeks. You sit at home all day. I'll be back before you know it." And then she was gone. The door slammed. The Uber pulled away. She flew off to the Maldives, white sand, infinity pools, bottomless mimosas, all on my fixed income. I turned back to the pantry. She had mentioned oatmeal. I reached for the large glass jar on the middle shelf, the one with the faded label in my own careful handwriting. "Rolled Oats, 2018. It felt wrong, too light. I unscrewed the lid and peered inside. A thin layer of dust, and perhaps 20 lonely oats rattling at the bottom. Not enough for a single bowl. She hadn't even looked. She had thrown out the excuse to quiet my protests and never gave me another thought. Something inside me cracked, not loudly, not with tears, but quietly. A cold spreads from the heart outward when you realize the person you carried for 9 months, nursed through fevers, stayed up nights sewing costumes for school plays, and denied yourself everything so they could have more, is capable of this level of indifference. I closed the jar. The soft clink of glass on wood sounded final. I needed money, even a few dollars for bread and milk. Serafina was careless with coins. She often emptied her pockets onto her dresser, quarters, dimes, sometimes fives. I walked to her bedroom. The room looked like a high-end boutique had exploded. Dresses draped over chairs, empty shopping bags on the floor, lipstick tubes open like flowers, receipts scattered like confetti. I searched methodically, under magazines, in drawers, inside shoes. Nothing. My eyes fell on a folded sheet of paper half-missed in the trash can. I fished it out and smoothed it on the dresser. It was her travel itinerary and resort confirmation. The total cost glowed in bold at the bottom. Exactly 5 months of my Social Security checks. 5 months I had skipped new glasses, though my prescription had changed. 5 months I had repaired the same 3 dresses over and over rather than buy new ones. 5 months I had eaten eggs and toast so she could have name-brand everything to fit in. I folded the paper carefully and slipped it into my apron pocket. Evidence. I left her room and closed the door softly, as if sealing away a chapter. The living room greeted me with its familiar grandeur and oppression. High ceilings, crown molding, heavy velvet drapes that blocked most of the sunlight. In the center stood the antique rosewood break-front cabinet, my mother's pride, inherited from her mother. Behind its beveled glass doors gleamed a full set of Rosenthal china, service for 16, hand-painted with tiny roses. We had used it perhaps 3 times in 30 years. For Serafina's wedding, I had always told myself, the wedding that never happened. On the sideboard, the sterling silver flatware in its original felt-lined chest, the silver tea service polished every month whether anyone saw it or not. In the hall closet, 3 fur coats, mink, fox, Persian lamb, wrapped in acid-free tissue, smelling of cedar and mothballs. Serafina called them dust collectors, but I knew their worth. I looked around slowly. This was not a home. This was a shrine. The Serafina Future Museum. And I was the unpaid curator, shuffling in worn slippers, dusting exhibits, starving quietly so that one day the heiress could arrive, claim everything, and perhaps spare me a thought. My stomach growled again, louder. But this time something else accompanied the sound, a spark. Not hot anger yet, just cold, crystalline clarity. I walked to the coffee table where stacks of old newspapers collected. Serafina hated them. Trash, Mom. Why do you hoard garbage? But I had seen something weeks ago and circled it lightly in pencil, never imagining I would need it. I flipped through the classifieds until I found it. Reginald Harcourt, fine antiques and collectibles bought and sold. China, silver, jewelry, furniture, honest valuation, house calls welcome. I stared at the rotary phone on the side table. It was an antique itself, heavy black bakelite, reliable. Oatmeal, you said, I whispered to the empty room. I picked up the receiver. The dial tone was steady, patient. I dialed slowly. Each click of the rotary dial felt like turning a key in a lock I had forgotten existed. 1 ring, 2, 3. Good evening, Harcourt Antiques, a cultured male voice answered. Good evening, I said. My voice surprised me, steady, clear. My name is Margaret Whitmore. I have a sterling silver tea service and flatware set I'd like valued. Early 20th century, excellent condition. There was a pause, then genuine interest. I'd be delighted to come by tomorrow morning, Mrs. Whitmore, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, I agreed. I hung up and sat in the dimming light, hands folded in my lap, heart beating slow and strong. Reginald Harcourt arrived precisely at 9, rain misting his gray overcoat. He was tall, silver-haired, with the courteous manners of another era and eyes that missed nothing. He expected, I think, a little old lady with plated silver and trembling hands. Instead, he found a straight-backed woman in a clean cardigan, who led him directly to the sideboard and opened the silver chest without hesitation. 12 place settings, dinner forks, salad forks, knives, soup spoons, teaspoons, butter knives, all heavy sterling, monogrammed with my grandparents' intertwined initials. The pattern was exquisite, delicate scrolls and roses. He donned white gloves, took out a jeweler's loupe, and examined piece by piece in silence. Magnificent, he murmured. Gorham Chantley pattern circa 1910, barely used, original chest. This is museum quality. He named a figure. It was staggering, 8 months of my income. A month ago, I would have gasped, thanked him profusely, and hidden the cash under my mattress. Today, I looked him in the eye. "That's dealer's cost," I said calmly. "You'll sell this to a collector for at least double. I want a fair price between friends." He blinked, then smiled with real respect. "You know your silver, Mrs. Whitmore." "I know value," I replied. We negotiated. I held firm. In the end, he paid 30% more than his first offer, all in cash. He left with the chest carefully packed in his car, and I stood in the hallway holding a thick envelope that felt like possibility. I did not count it yet. I put on my good Navy coat, the one I saved for doctor appointments and funerals, and walked out into the soft rain. I did not go to the discount grocery, with its flickering lights and bruised produce. I went downtown to La Maison Gourmand, the gourmet emporium I had only ever window shopped. The automatic doors parted like a curtain, and I was enveloped in scents of fresh-baked brioche, roasted coffee, aged cheese, and ripe fruit. I took a basket and walked slowly, like a visitor in a gallery. At the charcuterie counter, half a pound of jambon de Bayonne, thinly sliced, please, and some saucisson sec. At the cheese manger, a wedge of Comté 24 months, a soft triple creme brie, a small wheel of truffled pecorino. The bakery, a warm sourdough boule and a half-dozen buttery croissants still in the paper bag from the oven. Produce, white asparagus, heirloom tomatoes the color of sunsets, fresh figs, and though outrageously expensive, 2 perfect white peaches. Finally, the seafood counter, a side of wild Scottish salmon, cold-smoked, translucent rose. I paid without flinching. The total was more than I used to spend in a month. The cashier wrapped everything beautifully. At home, I did something I had not done in 20 years. I opened the china cabinet and took out the good linen tablecloth, white damask with hand-embroidered borders. Serafina had forbidden me to use it. "You'll spill tea on it, Mom. It's for special occasions." Today was special. I spread it on the dining table, set a place with the Rosenthal china, a silver fork and knife, I still had plenty, a crystal glass. I arranged the food like a painting. Rosy slices of jambon rolled into roses, cubes of cheese, figs split to reveal their ruby hearts, salmon draped like silk, bread torn into chunks, butter curling from the knife. Last, I peeled one white peach over the plate. The flesh was fragrant, honey-sweet. Juice ran down my wrist as I bit into it. I ate slowly, properly, with a linen napkin. Each bite tasted like rebellion, like recognition, like being seen, by myself finally. When I finished, only crumbs and peach pit remained. I felt full in a way I had not in decades, body and soul. I cleared the table, washed the dishes by hand, and placed the long receipt from La Maison Gourmand in the empty space on the sideboard where the silver chest had stood. A quiet declaration. The days that followed were gentle and revolutionary. I woke with the sun, instead of to an alarm for early bird grocery sales. I breakfasted on croissants and real butter, coffee brewed strong in the French press I had forgotten I owned. I read books I had bought years ago and never opened because there wasn't time. I walked in the park and bought myself flowers, huge creamy roses that opened over days on the mantel. And when Serafina called from her infinity pool, music and laughter in the background. "Mom, how's everything? Still kicking? Bet you're missing me. Just add extra water to the oatmeal, it stretches further. Old trick." I sipped a glass of chilled Sansera and answered calmly, "I'm doing wonderfully, darling. No need to worry." She laughed, that superior, pitying laugh. "Don't go begging from the neighbors, okay? It's embarrassing. Gotta go, sunset yacht cruise." Click. I smiled at my reflection in the dark window and made another appointment with Mr. Harcourt. This time, the diamond and sapphire brooch that had been my mother's, Art Deco, platinum, stones like captured starlight. Serafina adored borrowing it for parties. "It's vintage, Mom, so on trend." He paid a breathtaking sum without much haggling. I had learned fast. Then the oil painting over the fireplace, a small but genuine impressionist landscape. Then the Persian rug that covered the living room floor. Then the china service itself. Piece by piece, the museum emptied. The rooms grew lighter, airier. My bank envelope grew heavier. One afternoon, while searching for provenance papers in an old secretary desk, my fingers closed around a glossy red folder I did not recognize. Inside, a brochure for Golden Rest Assisted Living, a state-run facility notorious for its bleak hallways, overworked staff, and residents parked in wheelchairs facing walls. And beneath it, a drafted durable power of attorney. My name at the top. Serafina's name as agent. Powers listed in cold legalese. Manage finances, sell real estate, make medical decisions, admit to facilities. A sticky note in her handwriting, notarize week after I return. She had not been waiting for nature to take me. She had grown impatient. She planned to declare me incompetent, move me to Golden Rest, sell the house and remaining antiques, and live lavishly on the proceeds while I faded away under fluorescent lights. I sat at the desk for a long time, papers trembling in my hands. No tears came. Only a white-hot resolve. I called Mr. Harcourt again. Bring a van and 2 assistants tomorrow. We're clearing nearly everything. He arrived the next morning to find me calm and decisive. We worked all day. Furniture wrapped and carried out. Art crated. Porcelain boxed. The grandfather clock that had ticked through my marriage, my widowhood, my daughter's childhood, silenced and loaded. When the last truck pulled away, the house echoed. Bare walls showed lighter rectangles where pictures had hung for decades. Floors gleamed without rugs. Sunlight poured in unblocked. I stood in the center and breathed deeply. It was no longer a museum. It was a home, mine. With the final payment, now a small fortune, I hired a professional cleaning crew for a top-to-bottom deep clean. Windows, walls, floors, ovens, every corner until the house smelled of lemon and fresh beginnings. Then I placed the largest order La Maison Gourmand had ever delivered to a private home. Caviar, beluga, ostra, savruga in gleaming blue tins. Foie gras torches. White Alba truffles in glass jars. Vintage Dom Perignon by the case. Exotic fruit, mangosteen, rambutan, cherimoya, finger limes. Prime Wagyu steaks. Handmade chocolates from a Parisian chocolatier. Artisanal cheeses, charcuterie, fresh truffles, saffron, vanilla beans. Enough to stock a Michelin star restaurant. The delivery arrived in refrigerated vans. Young men in uniforms carried crate after crate into the kitchen. I directed them to the old refrigerator, a reliable General Electric from the 1980s that still hummed faithfully. They packed it methodically. Top shelf, neat rows of caviar tins glinting like treasure. Next, chilled bottles of champagne lying on their sides. Cheeses wrapped in parchment. Truffles in their jars. Drawers filled with vibrant fruit instead of wilted carrots. Door shelves, chocolates, foie gras, jams made from heirloom berries. When they finished, the refrigerator was packed solid. The door closed with a satisfied thunk. I tipped them generously and closed the front door. Then I opened the fridge again just to look. The interior light illuminated abundance. Cold air carried sense of wealth and possibility. This was my revenge and my salvation. Serafina's inheritance, chilled to perfection. 2 weeks later, exactly on schedule, the key rattled in the lock at noon. I was in the kitchen, seated at the table in a new emerald silk blouse, sipping single estate Darjeeling from a porcelain cup. The door burst open. "Mom, your savior has returned," Serafina's voice rang out, triumphant and theatrical. "I'm exhausted and starving. Plain food was criminal. Hope you saved some oatmeal for me." Suitcase wheels rumbled over the bare wood floors. She strode in, deeply tanned, hair sun-bleached, enormous sunglasses pushed up like a headband, designer beach bag swinging. She expected dim rooms, dust, medicine smells, and her mother shuffling forward with apologies and gratitude. Instead, bright sunlight sent of fresh lilies from a huge bouquet on the floor, echoing emptiness, and me, calm, well-dressed, composed. She stopped short. Why does it feel so empty? Suspicion crept into her voice. She looked around, confusion growing. No rug, no clock ticking, no heavy furniture, pale squares on walls. Mom, where is everything? I took a slow sip of tea. I redecorated. She laughed nervously. With what money? Hunger and habit propelled her to the kitchen. She marched past me without a proper greeting and yanked open the refrigerator door with dramatic force. The light blazed on. She froze. Then she screamed, a high animal sound of shock and horror. Row upon row of caviar. Champagne bottles like soldiers. Truffles glowing. Fruit in impossible colors. Foie gras, chocolates, luxury packed so tightly the shelves strained. She stumbled back, hand over her mouth. What is this? I turned slowly. Groceries. Her eyes were wild. Where did you get the money for this insanity? This is tens of thousands of dollars. I set my cup down gently. Clink. I sold the antiques, darling. I was hungry. You took my check and left me an empty oat jar. A woman has to eat. Her face drained of its perfect tan. She dropped her bag and ran from room to room, shrieking as each empty space confirmed the truth. Silver gone. China gone. Painting gone. Brooch gone. Clock gone. Rug gone. She returned to the kitchen, clutching the empty velvet-lined box that once held the silver teaspoons, holding it out like evidence in court. We were robbed. While I was gone, you let thieves in. Call the police right now. No need, I said quietly. I sold everything legally, to a reputable dealer, with notarized contracts attesting to my full mental capacity. She stared, mouth working soundlessly. You sold my inheritance. Your inheritance, I stood. It was never yours until I was dead, and I decided I'm not dead yet. She lunged at the open fridge, grabbing caviar tins and champagne bottles, hugging them to her chest. This can still be returned. I'll save what's left of my future. I stepped closer. Put them back. That is my food bought with my money. She clutched tighter. It's mine. You're senile. You didn't know what you were doing. The doorbell rang. Serafina ran to answer it, still clutching bottles. On the doorstep stood our upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn Park, holding a small casserole dish, and behind her, Mr. Reginald Harcourt, arriving for the final pickup of rare books we had agreed on. Serafina seized the moment. Mrs. Park, thank God, my mother has lost her mind. She sold everything, family heirlooms worth hundreds of thousands, while I was away. She's blowing it on caviar. It's dementia. You have to witness this. Mrs. Park stepped in cautiously, eyes wide. Mr. Harcourt followed politely. I invited them to the kitchen table. I offered tea. I offered fresh scones I had baked that morning with real Devonshire cream. Mrs. Park accepted both. Mr. Harcourt produced his leather folder. Serafina tried to grab it. You took advantage of a vulnerable elderly woman. He regarded her coolly. Madam, your mother is one of the sharpest, most informed sellers I have dealt with in 40 years. Every transaction was documented, signed willingly, and notarized with a certificate of capacity. Here are copies. He laid the papers out. Serafina scanned them frantically. Seals, signatures, dates, all impeccable. Mrs. Park, mouth full of scone and cream, mumbled, Margaret, dear, you look wonderful. Better than in years. Serafina's voice rose to a shriek. She ate my future. I slid the red folder across the table. It landed in front of her with a soft slap. She recognized it instantly. Color drained completely from her face. Planning my retirement at Golden Rest, were you? I asked softly. So you could sell the house and live on the proceeds while I waited to die in a state facility. Mrs. Park gasped, hand over heart. Mr. Harcourt's expression turned to stone. Serafina stammered. That's not, it was just in case, for your own good. I stood. Take your brochure. You may need it one day. I walked to the front door and opened it. Because you are leaving now. The locks were changed yesterday. Your suitcase is still packed from your trip. Everything you own is in it. She screamed. You can't evict me. I'm on the deed. You are not. The house is solely in my name. Always has been. I'll sue. I'll get a lawyer. You may try, but until courts decide, if they decide in your favor, you have no home here. And if you force entry, both Mrs. Park and Mr. Harcourt will testify that you threatened violence. Both witnesses nodded solemnly. Serafina looked at the three of us, a solid wall. Her empire of manipulation crumbled. She dropped the caviar tins. They clattered on the floor. She grabbed her suitcase, tears of rage streaming. You'll die alone, you bitter old woman. Choke on your stupid caviar. The door slammed behind her. Silence returned, clean, peaceful silence. Mrs. Park finished her scone and patted my hand. Good for you, Margaret. Mr. Harcourt collected the last books and left with a respectful bow. I locked the door. I returned to the kitchen. I opened the refrigerator. The abundance still glowed. I took out a tin of beluga, a mother-of-pearl spoon, and the remaining croissant. I sat at the table and ate caviar on warm bread, washing it down with champagne poured into a crystal flute. The taste was exquisite. But more than that, it was the taste of sovereignty, of a life reclaimed. Weeks have passed. The house is now furnished sparingly with pieces I truly love. A comfortable armchair by the window, bookshelves filled, fresh flowers always. I travel soon, a month at a spa in the Alps, paid for with the sale of the mink coat that moths had begun to claim anyway. I eat what I want when I want. I wear the colors I love. I dance sometimes in the kitchen to old jazz records. Serafina tried calling once, tears, threats, bargaining. I answered calmly. One more attempt at contact, and I sell the house tomorrow. I'll move to Tuscany or donate everything to charity. Your choice. She has not called again. I do not know where she lives now. Perhaps a shared apartment, perhaps on a friend's couch. She is learning what the rest of us learned long ago. The world does not owe you comfort simply because you exist. And I am learning what it feels like to be the protagonist of my own life. Every morning I wake and choose myself. Every bite of ripe fruit, every sip of good wine, every new day is a quiet victory. This is the story, dear listeners. A story about the moment the cup of patience overflows and a woman says, enough. I chose me. And I have never been happier. What do you think? Was Margaret right to sell everything and cut contact? Or did she owe her daughter something, anything, after years of sacrifice? Where is the line between generosity and self-erasure? Between teaching a lesson and cruelty? Have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? Have you ever realized you were living in a museum of someone else's future? Write to me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story touched you, moved you, made you think, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. You owe nothing to anyone except yourself. Thank you for spending this time with me. Tell me, where in the world are you listening from today? I'll see you in the next story. With love and deep respect.